Welcome, everyone, to another episode of My Girl Life podcast. I am super excited about my guest today. Jessie McGrath has led a very, very interesting life, and we're going to peek into some of her accomplishments, challenges, and everything in between. Jessie has been a practicing lawyer and served as the Deputy District Attorney for the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office for over 30 years. She has channeled her vast experience into her activism efforts for the LGBT community. She has recently become actively involved in the entertainment industry. She is a co-creator, writer, director, producer, and actress in the Slayevich Sisters comedy shorts that can be seen on YouTube, and I'll post that information in the show notes. Welcome to the show, Jessie.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to be on with you.
Yay. So this is my first video interview with a guest. I've been doing solo episodes with video, but never an interview with a guest. So have you ever been anybody's first?
I don't think so, but I've had some people be my first.
Well, there you go. I told you people was going to be some insights. So let's start with a little background. Where did you grow up?
Originally in Colorado, small town north of Denver, Greeley, if you know what that is. Famous.
Yeah, I went to school there.
Oh, really? UNC or high
UNC?
School?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Cameron Elementary, Heath Junior High School, and Greeley Central until I moved to Nebraska when I was 16.
Nice. I have relatives that went to Central, so
yeah,
small world.
Greeley is famous for the episode on that one show, South Park, where they talk about Carmen was going to he wanted to go to Hawaii, and then they had the sign that said "Welcome to Greeley," the exact opposite of Hawaii.
That's a dichotomy there. I did not see that episode. I thought you were going to say the springtime livestock odor that would come about every spring and hit you right in the eyes.
It was more than just spring.
Yeah, you're right. And I guess I got used to it being there.
My grandparents had a ranch. They had a dairy. And so I had that smell around me all the time. And even after I moved to Nebraska, my mom got married to a cattle rancher. And so I grew up with a feedlot right next to my house. So,
oh, there you go. So you know it better than anybody. Well, tell us what your childhood was like.
I thought I had a pretty good childhood. I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' farm with my cousin, who was born just a few months after I was. And so we spent a lot of time on the farm, with each other. I got into sports, and I don't know why, because I hated a lot of them except for basketball.
Was it just kind of the thing to do?
Well, it was, yeah. It kept me busy and got me into doing some other things. And so I think I started organized basketball in junior high school, playing in a church league. And then I got onto our basketball team in my 9th grade year. And I was, I think the last person to play in a game the entire year. And it was the last game. And I think I got in for 15 seconds, and that caused me to be ineligible for church league then. So,
well, there you go.
And eventually I got a little better because I was able to start on the sophomore team. And then I started the junior varsity team after I moved to Nebraska and was a varsity starter. So I lettered in 3 sports in high school.
Nice. Did you have any dysphoria? Did any dysphoria kick in at that age? And you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, I mean, I knew when I was a kid in kindergarten, I got in trouble because at nap time, I wanted to go nap time with the girls, and I was told I was in the wrong place. And
you said, no, I'm in the right place. Excuse me.
And they were a little less tolerant back in the early 60s. So
different time.
It was a much, much different time. And so I was born very, very early in the 60s. And so it was something that not very many people talked about, but I knew I would lay in bed at night and pray that I would be like my cousin when I woke up and have my body right like she had hers right. And
what was your first memory of having that feeling? Like, What age? How early?
Oh, this 3, 4.
Okay.
When I knew from a very, very early age.
Interesting. Well, let's don't get ahead of ourselves here. Where do you currently live?
Well, right now I'm kind of living in 2 different places. I'm a resident of Nebraska. I bought a house here almost 2 years ago now to come back and fight against some trans related legislation that was going on here. And so I'm actually a resident of Nebraska, but I also live and work in Los Angeles, specifically in the Ventura County area north of
Beautiful.
that.
I love that area.
It
I used to
is
live
incredible.
I used to live in Redondo Beach in the South Bay area. We'd go up north, and that area is beautiful.
Oh, I live it out there. I'm halfway in between Simi Valley and Thousand Oaks, and it's literally 40 minutes for me to get to the beach. It's like an hour to get to the mountains. So it's not too populated. It's a rural farming community,
Right.
which is like, it makes me feel good because I love that lifestyle.
Good. Are you in a relationship currently?
Yes, no.
I guess that means it's complicated.
It's complicated.
A situationship, maybe?
I have some situationships. Yes, there are a couple of folks that I sometimes get to hang out and go out with. But as far as being in a relationship with a single person, I was a victim of COVID.
Gotcha. Is that something you want to have? Is that something you strive for? To have a serious relationship?
I miss it. I miss having, a best friend. I miss having somebody in bed with me to wake up in the morning and say, how did you sleep? And this is what I did today. What did you do? I miss that.
When something
closeness.
good or bad happens, that's the first person you think of to call, right?
Yeah. And I really do miss that. I was married for 23 years, and then I was in a relationship with another gal for 6 years after that.
Did your dysphoria have anything to do with the divorce?
Probably, but not in any overt way.
It might have been working in the background, or
it was.
It was always working in the background.
It's been working in the background my entire life.
It was knocking at the door.
It was there, but I could beat it down and make it go away and do everything that I could to not let it be there. And because of societal issues, and you just didn't want to blow up your life type thing. No, I really never even really thought about, it blowing up my life and that aspect of it. I just thought it was sinful, that it was against the word of God, that it was something if I just prayed hard enough, it would stay away, which it obviously didn't in my case.
But you didn't know that at the time. And I think a lot of people think that. They think it's just a phase or it's something that's going to pass. Because it's difficult, I'm sure, to acknowledge it and then take action, right? So it's got to be pounding, at the door before you open that door, right? Otherwise, you're just going to keep it at bay.
Well, I viewed it as some form of perversion, I guess, if you want to say, because of so much of the religious background that I had. And so it was seen as a fault, something that you couldn't do. It occasionally would spring up during the course of my life, and probably as little as, borrowing my wife's mascara when she was out of the house and putting on some mascara and eyeliner. That would be about the extent of my participation. And then I would feel so incredibly guilty.
How about Halloween? Was that your chance to dress up and not be out?
I never did that during Halloween times. There were only a few times when it would kind of manifest itself in my life. And once I was married, there was no freedom to do anything at all. Things like that.
Well, I was going to ask you, we're dovetailing right into that. I was going to ask you how you expressed your gender that you felt like was your true gender. How did you express that in the early days? And it sounds like for the most part, you suppressed it. But as it started to come out, are there any ways that you expressed it before coming out? And by the way, I love when you said coming out to myself was the hardest part. And I want you to elaborate on that.
Well, like I said, I would sometimes try on my ex's dress when everyone was out of the house, and we had 4 kids, so there was always somebody at the house for the most part.
Okay.
And so rarely, probably maybe 10 times over 20 years would I do something like that. But there was a period of time when my ex got a job in Colorado. I was trying to find a job, but I was still at the DA's office. And so I lived in a little 1-room apartment. And at that point, I went out to Big Lots, which was just down the street, and I got some makeup. I got some clothes. And I did that for about a week, I want to say. And then the guilt and the shame, which were truly the motivating factors that kept me from being able to see who I was.
And this is obviously before the internet, and you probably thought you're the only person on the planet that was doing that, right?
I didn't think I was the only person on the planet, because I did know at least some aspects of that. Because one of the very first murder case that I did was the murder of the drag queen on Sunset Boulevard. And so I spent time talking with the other queens that were the witnesses and other things like that. So I was certainly aware of, at least to a certain extent. But again, it was through the lens of radical religion that, that those are people but yet in talking with them, they were like normal people. And so I saw it there, but that was, God, I want to say that was in 94, 95, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And that, so I got that. It felt good. And then it just felt incredibly shameful.
Did you throw everything away? Did you purge and throw whatever you had away, or did you kind of stash it away for later?
Oh no, that was definitely a purge. And it was such a purge that, I couldn't throw it away in my trash can, because the last thing I wanted to do was somebody find out about the transvestite DA and, find my stuff, and then I drag my ass through
would that be a big story, especially in LA?
And so I wrapped it up in one of the plastic store trash bags, and then I do another one, tied it up, then another one, and then I drove it like 2 miles away to a park.
To the 7-Eleven.
To throw it away in a park trash can. And,
honey, we've all been there.
and there really wasn't much. I mean, it was like some little, one of those all-in-one
3 or 4 items. Yeah.
Makeup stuff and a cami or something. It just really wasn't much, but it did feel good.
You know what I found out? I purged several times, and again, I didn't have a lot of things. They fit in a one. It was really a file box that you could lock with a code. And it wasn't necessarily the cost of the items, whatever, but the few items that I found that I really liked, they were hard to find, and they were usually on a sale rack or something. But so replacing those was the hardest part, because they were probably $10 skirts or whatever. It was replacing everything that was the hard part. But boy, can I relate to the guilt and the shame and the purging. And I wrote an article about the purging stuff, and I think most of us have experienced that.
Well, I've read a lot of things after I transitioned, or as I was leading into my transition, about all of this, and so many trans people go through that, where they get stuff purged, get stuff purged, get stuff purged.
It's almost universal.
It seems like that everyone has gone through something like that. And I did it, I think, even when I was a kid, because at some point I was probably 12, 13. I found a purse that somebody had thrown away, and so I got that. And then I got my little white bell-bottom jeans and just kind of a general top. And I remember I told one of my friends that this is my disguise in case I ever have to escape out of my house. That was my excuse. And he was like, "What the hell are you doing? Let's go. We got to get out of here. Put that shit up." And I was like, and so that was
a CIA agent, or what's going on over there?
That was like the only time when I was young, when I guess tried to come out a little bit on that. And it was like so incredibly embarrassing. And I was so incredibly,
Did you ever get caught?
I'm trying, I almost think that my, middle daughter caught me right as I was starting into my transition and looking at that. because I never went out in public until December of 2014 after I had finally, it had hit me again and I started looking in that. And so then I went out and I came back and I was sitting in my driveway getting ready to go in and a car pulled up and I looked like my dog. But nobody got out, and I was like sliding down in my seat, trying to hide, like, oh, please, oh God, don't let it be this. I don't want my kids to find out that I'm a transvestite like this. Yeah.
And you know what? I hate that word. I know it's technically accurate for cross-dressing, but I guess maybe it's my age because that was just.
It was an insult.
It was an insult. And even today, maybe it's just fine. I personally, it's just not a term that I like to use, but it is technically accurate.
That was my mind saying that at the time going, and
he almost associated it with a streetwalker back then, right? It just, it had a nasty connotation to it.
For some folks, yeah. I mean, it definitely was. And
unfortunately.
And if you look at exclusions and legislation and things like that, historically, that's the term that they would use for that. And that's kind of the language that I used in the area that I was growing up in because transgender did not exist during that period of time. Didn't even know that word. Had no idea what it was. And all I knew is that was bad and I couldn't be seen that way because then I would be seen as a less or a subhuman individual because so many parts of society feel that way. And I was like, oh, I can't do that. Until I finally just figured out that, I had to.
Yeah, you're not the only one and it's not a bad thing. You didn't start to transition till you were 53. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
What year was that?
That was the end of 94 is when I finally came to the realization. And then the beginning part of 95 is when I actually took active steps to do that. My mom had passed away in 2011 and my stepdad had never gone through her things. And I mean, they had an incredible love story that I just, it was so incredible.
Those are nice role models.
And then in 2014, he finally got with my brother and I and said he wanted us to come out to the farm and start going through my mom's things. But then he got sick and ended up passing away in September. And so I was back at the farm. I was going through my mom's stuff and her makeup was still on the dresser in the master bathroom. Her clothes were all still there. And
trust me, my mom passed away a few years ago. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's just as if they just vanished.
And it was like nothing had changed from the time she got sick and went to the hospital. Her book was still sitting on the nightstand, with the page. Everything was all kind of still there. Now, some of it
isn't that surreal? Isn't that surreal when you walk in, they're gone and yeah, it's just surreal.
And this had been a number of years at that point. But then I remember when I was young, yes, sometimes I would get one of my mom's dresses and wear it. So I started going through this and it just started coming back and hitting me again. And to the point that I got some of my folks' suitcases and I took some of my mom's clothes, some of my mom's makeup that she had, which was probably horribly out of date, but it was just, there was an incredible, I don't want to say compulsion, but it was almost like a need to start looking at this again. And from that point on, I mean, I went from ordering gun parts to bras, my Amazon order list, it
drastically
really
changed.
It was drastically different. I can tell pretty much exactly when this hit.
And how Amazon likes to profile you, right? And they'll feed you up stuff. They probably went, what the heck? Our algorithm's broken. Somebody took over Jessie's account.
It was like, who the hell's running this account now?
Exactly.
And so then I started getting online and researching, and I went to Susan's place, which I know a lot of people in the community absolutely hate because it's a Hun site, especially a lot of the younger trans people. But for me, I got to meet some folks, and I got to meet them then in real life I got to find out information, because once I knew I was trans, and I figured I have to transition because that's the only cure. Or
what was that like? And I know it probably didn't happen overnight, but what was that like to realize, yes, I'm trans and it's okay. And that's what this has all been about. This gnawing at me. What was that like?
It was absolutely eye-opening to start reading these things and hearing from other folks and seeing the research that had been done and understanding that this is something that happens to a certain percentage of the population. And it was like, that explains so much of my life. It explains so much of the problems that I have. And it really was an eye-opening, amazing experience to finally see that. I mean, it was very hard to then come out and tell someone. And the cousin that I grew up with, she's really like my sister for the most part, because we grew up together a lot. And she was the first person that I called. And I think it was shortly after Christmas in 2014. And I sent her some pictures.
Was she the first person you came out to?
I came out. Anybody that I ever said I'm trans, it was on a phone call to her. And of course, I made her promise to never tell anybody, not even your mom, nobody. This is double secret, top secret, you know. And so I sent her some pictures.
Did she stick to it?
She did. She's been amazing. She is one of my true champions, and she was there for me. She was out there and came out for me when I had my bottom surgery. She's a surgical nurse, and so she was there, taking care of me. But I sent her some pictures, and she goes, "Oh, very beautiful, nice skin, very beautiful." And then it was like, "And this is you?" ? And so then I had to say, yeah, this is me. This is who I am. This is what I look like. This is what I'm going to look like. And she goes, "How long ago did you have those pictures taken?" And I was like, "Last week." It was just a selfie, basically. And apparently I looked a lot younger, and as being Jessie than I did as my old self. And
Maddie shaved a few years off of my looks. Most of the people that I've come out to, except for new friends, have been in with pictures. And I always tell people, and when you said don't tell anybody, reminded me that I asked them not to share it. But it was almost like speaking out of two sides of my mouth, because it's kind of like when you're talking to your kids and you're like, look, you're too young to have sex, don't have sex.
Yeah.
But if you do, use a condom. You know, and so it's like when I showed them the pictures, I'm like, please don't share with anybody. But if you do, please show them a picture, because I don't want them to picture Jim in a dress. God knows what they're picturing. And I was proud of how I looked. And so I gave them a picture just in case.
Yeah. And so when I came out to her, she was like, "That makes so much sense." And I was like, "What?" And she goes,
kind of like the mom that says, "Oh, honey, we've known all along," right?
Yeah. It's like, oh, she was like, "Oh yeah, I totally see that," and so that,
which makes you feel even better about what you're doing.
That gave me such a sense of relief that I knew that I would at least have family. But
and somebody so close to you, somebody that was so important to you, and getting that support is everything.
And somebody who I grew up with, and who is, is my sister. And having that did feel incredible and made me feel incredibly good. And then she encouraged me to come out to my girlfriend that I had at the time, which I subsequently did. And then my girlfriend encouraged me to get a therapist. It was interesting. How
long had you been dating her?
At that point, it had been approximately 4 years, I think.
Oh, okay.
So, I had started, dating her about, I want to say 10 months after, or 12 months after I started, I had filed for divorce. Was she upset because it has been so long and you didn't tell her, versus telling somebody in the first, say, 3, 4, 5, 6 months? Well, I mean, she was very brought up to speed about as soon as I was about myself. So it wasn't like it drug out for a long time. And so But yeah, she was supportive, and she actually joined WPATH, is on the legal side of WPATH, has represented a number of trans individuals in employment discrimination cases. She's a lawyer in Chicago. So we were distance dating, but we saw each other an awful lot.
And how long did that last after you came out to her?
About 18 months, roughly. We ended up breaking up shortly after I had my bottom surgery.
Do you mind sharing what procedures you've had?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I haven't had a whole lot done. I'm really, really lucky. I had my trach shave. I had limited FFS. They basically did a little bit of the lowering of my hairline, and I did a brow lift and my eyelids. And I think there was a little bit of bone reduction, and then breast augmentation. And then I've had bottom surgery. So.
And what was the recovery for those, especially the bottom surgery? I've had some friends go through that, and it's quite an.
I had a really good surgeon, and I did it in Los Angeles. And so I was actually hospitalized for the first 6 days, not being allowed to even get out of bed. And I was,
is that normal, or was that just something individual for you?
That was his procedure that he does.
Okay.
It was Gary Alter, who I don't think he does the surgeries anymore, but he was one of the early pioneers in doing that and had done it for quite a few years. And I think he's in his 70s now and is retired from that. But he also did Caitlyn Jenner's and a few other folks that I know in the community. And his procedure was just bed
There's
rest.
A hot take for you, everybody. She has had bottom surgery.
Well, it's in her book.
I think we all knew that. Yeah, I know. I've read her book. I've read her book twice.
She didn't say who it was with, though, but it's just, I knew that through some grapevine stuff. It was not bad because I had a Dilaudid drip for the first couple of days. So, I would just hit the button and then I could take a nap. It was kind of surreal because after I got out of recovery and got in my room and I first woke up, the TV was on to HBO and the Danish Girl was playing. And it was
how ironic.
I was like,
how ironic.
Oh, yeah, that didn't end well for her.
Yeah. I don't need to be seeing this.
And I did that about 18 months into my transition. I did my FFS and breast augmentation 6 months into my transition.
Yeah. So what order was it? What order were the procedures?
The trach shave I had done at the same time. I had to have some nasal reconstruction because I had collapsed nasal valves. And so while I was under, and it was Dr. Harrison Lee, and I said, well, might as well take this off while you're at it. And so that was in April, and this is all in 15 where it all started. So I actually came out to people in my family in January. I started therapy in February. I started hormones in March. I came out to everyone in April, which it was basically the same time as Caitlyn Jenner.
And when you say come out to everybody, and I want to get into your career, you mean you included your professional life in coming out?
I came out to everybody on a Facebook post. The Sunday after the Caitlyn Jenner interview, that Friday, I was back here in Nebraska because we were having the estate sale for my folks. And so I'd come out to my family, they all knew it. And we actually sat and watched the interview together. And it was kind of funny because my niece's husband goes, wow, she's saying the same thing that you were talking about with us. And then it became every time Caitlyn says something that I had already said, we had to take a shot. And so it took us a while to get through that.
So you were drunk by the end of it. I love it.
By the end of it, we were all pretty drunk.
That's awesome.
And so,
what did Caitlyn Jenner coming out mean to you, or transitioning? What did that mean to you?
Well, to me, it only meant that people got a sense of what it was about because it was so public and people were talking about it.
Did you feel like it, in a sense, paved the way for you in some ways?
No, because
or make it smoother or more acceptable.
I think it helped tremendously because,
or maybe just psychologically.
Well, it definitely helped with people kind of understanding what I was telling them at that point because a lot of folks did not know. And so for me, that was a big help because the information was now out there and I didn't have to repeat some of it and they could make adjustments on it and such. I wasn't really watching her that close on all that. It was just so strange that we actually went to a lot of the same doctors and our timeline was fairly close together on some of these things. So
did you watch her reality show? Did you watch her reality show?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did.
And what did you think of her politics, given that she's transgender?
I thought she was a political novice and politically stupid. I mean, she came out and supported Ted Cruz, and I'm like, well, gee, did you try checking with his campaign to see if maybe they're going to be okay with having a trans person do that? Because there's nothing worse than endorsing somebody who tells you to go fuck off, you know? And so I was like,
bad for both parties.
I was sitting there going, she's just a political novice and doesn't know what she's doing.
Well, and the other girls in the show were not thrilled. It added some friction, and maybe that was the point. I don't know, but she truly does believe those things.
I've met her once, and I'm not enamored at all with her. I was actually, the night I met her was the first night her I don't know if it's her girlfriend or manager or whatever you want to call her, but Sophia, it was the first night that Sophia had ever been out. So I met them that night. And for me, it was though more, it didn't like propel me on anything, but it was good because it had that frame of reference that I could use to get other people to come out. And,
right.
And basically we saw that on Friday. We had our farm sale on Saturday, and on Sunday, I posted on my Facebook, hey, everybody, I am transitioning. I've got a new Facebook page. It's Jessie. If you want to still be my friend, come over and join me there. And
was that just a coincidence that you did that Facebook post and came out to everybody right when Caitlin did her interview?
It would have happened before that, but because we had the farm sale, for my folks' estate, I had talked it over with my family, and I was just like, yeah, probably not best to let it out there, because I was concerned that, there would be gawkers and people making fun of me at the sale, and it would potentially cause some issues. And so it was just easier. So, but it was, and I had no idea that that's when that interview was going to come out, because we had set the farm sale a couple of months before that. And I had come out to my brother in February or March, I think it was. And so, he had known.
So on what basis did you meet Caitlin and her friend?
She was at a fundraiser for I think it was the Los Angeles Gay Man's Choir and the Trans Choir. There was a fundraiser in a house in Hollywood. And so we were just kind of talking, and then she was talking with somebody else, and then she turned around and she goes, so are we going to do this? And I'm like,
yeah.
Do what, a picture? And she goes, yeah, let's get a picture. And I was like,
you do a pretty good impression of her.
I stuck my camera out there and I said, I'm pretty good with this. And she goes, well, my daughters have written books on. And I'm like, okay.
Oh yeah. We know your daughters. Yeah.
Yes. I know. I'm nothing compared to your whole family. So yeah, let's just take the damn, and so I got the picture, and that was really the only time I've met her.
Been there, done that, right?
I know people who know her, who hang out with her, and I guess kind of like her. I also know a lot of the folks who were on I Am Kate. Angelica Ross was my roommate for about a year. She was on there. I'm friends with a couple of the other folks on there. So I got some background behind that.
Let's talk about your career. You had a very interesting career. And can you just kind of go through your career path for us and describe some of the highlights for us?
Sure. Well, after high school, I came to University of Nebraska-Lincoln, majored in political science, minored in history, English, and speech, and was on the speech team. I knew I was going to be a lawyer. It's what I had always wanted to do. After I graduated, I had a kind of a gap year in between there. And then when I was getting ready to start law school, I applied, and the only place I really applied was Nebraska, because I kind of wanted to stay here. Plus, I also knew I was going to have to join the National Guard in order to be able to get myself through school. So I enlisted in the National Guard.
Yes, you served in the military, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. By the way, thank you for your service. I mean that sincerely. When people sacrifice their time at any level, it's just honorable, and I appreciate it. While we're out having fun and living our fun life, those people that are serving our country, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, it was all my friends in law school, over the summer were going out and working at law firms or for judges or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
my law school summers, in between my first and second year, I was in basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And then for my, in between my second and third year, I was at Fort Lee, Virginia, undergoing my Army training. So it was very different. Than some of the other people had in their legal experience. But I always knew I was going to be a lawyer. And so I went into that in law school. It was moot court partners with a gal who had been one of my graduate teaching assistants on the speech team. And so, I had been a coach and I had done practice speeches and that. And we ended up getting kind of paired up on something, our first week of law school. And so we ended up becoming moot court partners, study partners, and then started dating at the end of our second year, and got married in between the first and second semester, our last year of college, of law school. So we had to find somewhere where we both got job offers, and it ended up that happened to be Los Angeles. So I ended up starting to work. I worked for the INS as a part of the Attorney General's Honors Program. And after a short period of time there, I wanted to do criminal law. There was an opening for a special assistant U.S. attorney to do criminal prosecutions of immigration violations, but they told me I didn't have enough experience. And so I think I started there in August, and then in December, there were ads in the Daily Journal, which is the legal newspaper for Los Angeles, that had announcements for job openings for both the PD's office and the DA's office. And so I applied. The PD's office got back to me real quickly. They offered me a job. I told them I'd talked to the DA, and they said they would hold the job open for me. So then I did the interview with the DA, and I got a job offer for them. And so in first part of May, 1988.
Okay.
I started as a deputy district attorney 1 for Los Angeles County. And
do you think your professional goals would have changed if you transitioned prior to interviewing and trying to go down that path?
I would hope not. I mean, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, and I think I would have been able to do that. My mom was a feminist who broke glass ceilings. In 1975, she was the first, female to be chair of the National Young Republicans. Right before, 2 years before Roger Stone got it. And so I saw her hanging out with all of these politicians and folks, and I knew that, you could do that. So I would imagine that I wouldn't have been any different as far as knowing that I could do that, because I'm sure my mom would have ultimately just been incredibly encouraging.
Do you think you would have been able to pursue your DA career if you'd have transitioned prior?
That's a different question.
Yeah, $64,000 question.
Would I have been able to practice as a DA in Los Angeles County? And that I'm not sure
at that time
would have happened at that time, because you have to remember, when I joined the office, Buck Compton, was still alive, who was one of the guys from Band of Brothers who prosecuted Sirhan. So, I doubt that 101st Airborne Army Ranger DA type person would go looking at somebody and go, oh yeah. So it was a different mentality, and even getting women into the office was difficult.
Yeah, good point.
But we did have a lot of female managers. My office, there's always been women in leadership in the DA's office in LA. We had bureau directors, assistant DAs. I think when I first started, Audrey Collins, who became a federal judge, was one of our assistant DAs at the time. And there were a number of incredible female prosecutors. So the fact that I was female, I don't think would have been. The fact that I had been trans, that would have. But if we had systems like they have now, I knew that if what the information that they have now, the technology, our understanding of the science, the ability to do medical interventions, if that stuff had existed when I was a kid, I would not have gone through that damn puberty that I hated, and I would have gone through my female puberty, which I would have hated, but still, I would have gone through the right one.
Well, I talked about that in a previous episode, gender affirming care. And one of the risks of waiting till you're of legal age is going through puberty in the wrong gender. It's traumatic. You want to speak to that?
You develop secondary sex characteristics that you then have to take care of. Now, I was incredibly blessed that I did not have a lot of that. I mean, I know gals who spend $75,000-$100,000 doing their FFS to try to break through all of that. And, I went to one of the leading FFS surgeons in the country, and it was 20 grand for my face and my boobs. That was all I had to spend. Like, I went and got the estimate on him, and I was like expecting, okay, we got to do this on the jaw, this, and it was like real little things. And it was like 10 grand. I was
you must have been lucky. You must have had features that were similar and that aligned more with the feminine.
This is all, this is everything from here down is original. In between here, it's original
parts.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have cheek implants. These are all my cheeks. This is my nose. This is my jaw. And
that's good.
So I was like, felt incredibly blessed in that.
Yeah.
regard.
Yeah. I finally am able to take advantage of my narrow shoulders, my small hands, some nondescript features. Yeah. Comes in handy. Well, that's it for our episode. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It lets me know I'm connecting with you. And remember, be bold, be kind, be you. Take care, Jesse.
Thanks a lot.